All right, good morning, everyone. This is a great turnout. And welcome to South County EDC's Aviation and Aerospace Forum. I'm Clarissa Falcon, and I'm chair this year of South County Economic Development Council, and we are so excited to host you this morning. South County EDC is a part of a consortium working to make our defense industry in this region more resilient. And the aviation and aerospace industry is a critical subsector of that industry. The consortium is led by Libby Day and Meredith Dibden Brown at the City of San Diego. Under their leadership, representatives from South County EDC and our partners, the Regional Economic Development Corporation, the East County Economic Development Council, San Diego Military Advisory Council, and the San Diego Workforce Partnership are working collaboratively together to help San Diego's defense industry and the ancillary businesses that feed that industry to support it. It is our intention today at today's Aerospace and Aviation Forum that we in the consortium learn, alongside with all of you, what the future of this industry holds and what this industry needs to do to grow, diversify, continue to invest in this region, and to thrive. I want to take a moment to acknowledge the South County EDC Aerospace Aviation Forum Task Force, who dedicated a lot of their time and their knowledge to help put today's event. And I want to have the members of that task force stand up and to be recognized, and would like to thank them. Thank you for your time. And one of the members reminded me that they had to come down on Friday afternoons to meet and organize this forum. So thank you so much for doing that. San Diego really is unique in that we know how to collaborate with our partners to work together to foster an environment that attracts, retains, and expands industries in this region. Our business community frequently supports South County EDC in our efforts, and today is no exception. SCEDC, one of our great partners, is one of our sponsors today and will be moderating today's panel. We do have Vanessa Mapula Garcia this morning, who represents SCEDC on our board. Also sponsoring today's event is U.S. Bank, and Brandon Hawkins, where's Brandon? There he is here this morning from U.S. Bank to say a few words, and if I can invite Brandon to come up, say a couple of words for us. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you guys for coming out. We really appreciate it. As a banker schmuck, I quite honestly thought of aerospace as rockets and airplanes only. And what I've come to realize over the last couple of days and weeks as we plan this event is that it's all the parts and the people and the technology. And what's really awesome is so many of those parts and people and technology reside right here in the South County. So myself and U.S. Bank are super happy to be affiliated and sponsoring this particular event. Both for the forum and for the EDC. We hope you enjoy the carb and sugar over there. That should get you to the moon and back for the rest of the day. But thank you very much for coming out. This is an important thing that we're doing here, and I'm glad we can all be a part of it. So thank you.
And it should be noted that Brandon, like me, is a lifelong South County EDC or South County resident. So, and went to the same high school together. Bonita Vista Barons, yes. So thank you, Brandon, for your continued support for what we do. I also want to acknowledge a great partner of ours, Southwest Airlines, who is our bag sponsor today. We extend our thanks to Tom, Star Wars Tom, is he here today? And his team, who were also kind enough to provide a token of our appreciation to the panelists who are here this morning. So thank you so much, Tom and Southwest Airlines. We have a very talented and notable panel lined up for you today, but before we introduce them, we should take a few moments to bring the Department of Defense's Office of Economic Adjustment's efforts into regional perspective. To do this, please allow me to introduce David Burrow, founder and CEO of Future IQ. David is acting as a facilitator and coordinator for the OEA grant and is an expert in creating future planning approaches for use in regional and industrial and organizational settings. He has pioneered the application of scenario planning with regions, industries, and corporations around the world. Dave created the Future Game, a widely used planning and workshop tool that has been used in over 500 workshops across 10 countries. David has written and contributed numerous papers and won many awards for his work in this field over the last 20 years. And I did have an opportunity to watch some of his presentations on the internet, and he really is a great salesman for technology in an international setting, so it's great to have you, David. So with that, I'd like to welcome him to the podium.
Okay. Thank you, Clarissa, and good morning, everybody. Thrilled to be with you. We wanted to just take a moment to give a little context to the Office of Economic Adjustment, Department of Defence, because they're one of the contributors to today's event. And today's event that Cindy and her group have organised is part of this larger sort of focus on defence and defence-related industries. So we wanted to just take a couple of minutes to give you a context for this project, because it will certainly have an impact and it may be of direct relevance and interest to you. So we have a couple of slides I just want to run through. So the Office of Economic Adjustment, if you're not aware of it, it's one of the mechanisms that the Department of Defence has to support adjustment where there's some impact associated with the defence industry. So often, for example, if a major defence contract cut occurs, that has huge ramifications in a local workforce. So the Office of Economic Adjustment, while it's relatively small, sort of fits into that category of adjustment packages that the DoD has, BRAC and those sort of things are in there as well. But what's unique about the OEA grants is that they're really targeted to competitive projects to help build resilience. So their interest is, even though there may be a lumpy sort of a cycle in defence contracts, what they want to have is viable ecosystems, viable local economies, and strong workforces that are able to respond if the equation goes the other way and it becomes an upswing. So the City of San Diego applied for and was the recipient of a Phase 1 grant from OEA in 2016, and that project's been running now for a number of months. And I just want to run through some of the steps. So it's been loosely, the working title is Propel San Diego, and it's a couple of features about this project and where it's at. One is it's a collaborative planning approach, and I think that's a very strong message, and it covers the whole county. And as Clarissa said and Cindy said, this involves the city, SDMAC, all the economic development organisations. So this is a very strong collaborative group coming together, a very strong group of core partners. The project is an opportunity, actually, for this region to take a long-term view. So I know that in our daily work and our businesses, we're often kind of caught in a fairly short sort of response cycle. Relatively rarely does a regional economy get a chance to really step back and say, what are the big issues we need to be thinking about over the next decade? And I think this is where this project's going to have direct relevance to everybody in this room, because it's a chance to work on things that are of shared concern. And some of those big issues which are behind the esteemed panellists' heads here, which I'll touch on, right? So what we're starting to look at is really issues around big resilience issues like economic diversification. So obviously defence is a big part of the economy, but there's an opportunity to really leverage that and expand it into all sorts of sectors, and this forum today is a very good example of that. Some of the other things that we're exploring with the core team of partners is the supply chain analysis, really trying to understand how far and wide the supply chain goes, where there's adjacency and crossover potential. Other big issues like connectivity, certainly workforce is a really major one. In our work, we work right across this country, from Maine to San Diego, Oregon to South Carolina, and everywhere we're working, workforce issues are right on the forefront. And in our workforce supply and demand modelling, I cannot take you to anywhere in America that is not facing a significant gap. And that could be like in Pittsburgh, it's 80,000 regional economies. We're forecasting 10, 20, 30,000 workforce gap. So you're not going to be immune to that as San Diego. Although you happen to be highly attractive and everybody wants to live here, there's pressures about how do you build a sustainable workforce going forward. And I think this is embedded in a much bigger macro issue facing the US, which is when you reach technical full employment and you start having skills gap and you have an ageing workforce, what's the response strategy? How do you maintain that pipeline of educated people that are going to feed your innovation in your industries? So why is this important to you? I want to just touch on that. So first of all, the ability to be able to demonstrate collaboration is a very important attribute when it comes to Department of Defence. And if, for example, you face a BRAC or something like that down the track, your ability to be able to demonstrate you can come together as a regional ecosystem and talk about the big issues and come together in solutions, that's a big plus. It's also, as I mentioned, I think it's a very important catalyst to be able to rally people to talk about the bigger, deeper issues. I mean, we know workforce is a big issue, but we've got to get our job done today. But in 5 years, that might descend upon us in a more potent way. So it's a chance now to be doing some of that deeper thinking. But also, the project has been a catalyst to be able to bring from the city to SDMAC to the economic development groups together to be able to look at how to assemble resources and organisations to tackle big issues. So I think those factors will have a direct translation to the environment for innovation and prosperity in San Diego. So my last comment is just what's next. So this is what to look out for in terms of the Propel San Diego and the OEA funded project. We're obviously right now in the process of looking at projects to dig deeper and to build deeper understanding and knowledge and data around some of those core big picture topics. We'll be very soon convening some core teams. So an invitation, what this process will want to do is to bring in industry-based people who want to be part of some very focused discussions about how to move topics forward. And if you're interested in being part of that in any way, certainly contact Cindy, or you can go to the SDMAC website. There's information there about this project. But the strength of this project will be really largely a measure of the depth of intellectual input we have into it from the economic development organisations, but also industry in this case. And the other part which is on the horizon is there's a fast-track process now to develop a Phase 2 application for this project, which will really provide the opportunity to extend that work even deeper and further. I mean, it's not huge money. We're talking about applications in the order of $1 million plus, but it is that catalytic money that allows groups like Cindy's here to convene these sort of forums, for the city to be able to bring the ecosystem together. All right, so I wanted to just give you that very brief update. I think you should know that for the City of San Diego to apply for that and be a recipient in a highly competitive process was a big plus. So really congratulations to Meredith and Libby and the others in the city for doing that. It brings some really interesting resources to this community for you to be able to think about big important issues in a way that is often hard to do, right? So we certainly look forward to being part of the session today. And again, if you're interested in finding out more, the SDMAC website, or see Cindy and one of the people from the South County EDC. Okay, so thank you very much.
Thank you so much, David, for providing context to what we're doing here this morning. Many of us don't associate SDG&E with aviation and aerospace, but did you know that SDG&E was the first in the nation to gain FAA airspace to test small unmanned aircraft systems for commercial operations? I didn't know that. So it goes to show that SDG&E is continually innovating, and SDG&E is here today to facilitate today's discussion. Our moderators from SCEDC are Andy Krajal and Christine Asaro. And Andy, I hope I got your last name right. Christine Asaro is a Chula Vista resident born and raised who joined San Diego Gas and Electric in March of 2002. In her 15 years at SDG&E, she has held many roles and is currently the Unmanned Aircraft System Project Advisor for SDG&E. In her role as UAS project advisor, she was part of the team who was the first in the nation to gain FAA airspace to test small UASs for commercial use. And she began that program actually in June of 2013. Later that year, the team was granted FAA Section 333 approval, which would allow SDG&E to use small UASs in their day-to-day operations in certain airspace. Christine was also successful in gathering 21 use cases company-wide where small UASs could be utilized as an everyday tool. She assisted in field testing various systems to ensure the correct small UAS were procured for the company. Today, Christine is currently an FAA remote pilot for small unmanned aircraft systems, as well as a systems trainer with SDG&E's Aviation Systems Department. So she'll be joining us on the stage in a few minutes. But first, Andy Crogel joined SDG&E in October of 2015 and has been managing the UAS program since January of 2016. And it was at a time when it was transitioned from research and development to actually applying it through operations. In this role, Andrew is responsible for the daily operations of the UAS program and continuing to develop new work methods for its application in utility industry. Prior to SCG&E, and this is kind of the cool part, Andy served as a pilot in the United States Marine Corps, flying CH-46 Sea Knights and V-22 Ospreys. During his squadron's transition from CH-46s to V-22s, Andy was selected to serve as a squadron aviation safety officer, establishing new policies and procedures to ensure safe flight operations in the new aircraft. During his first deployment, Andy supported humanitarian and disaster relief operations in Pakistan during the 2010 flooding of the Indus and Swat rivers in Pakistan. He deployed again in 2013 as an operations officer and forward air controller with the 1st Battalion, 4th Marines, and had the opportunity to work with UASs. He earned a Bachelor's of Science in Construction Management from Virginia Tech and a Master's of Business Administration from the University of Virginia's Darden School of Business. So Christine will be moderating the question and answer session of the panel, and Andy will be moderating our panel this morning. So please help me in welcoming Andy up to the podium here.
Good morning. It's truly an honor to be here, especially given the exceptional panel. Look forward to the conversation and very, very thankful to be here at the South County EDC. Appreciate the introduction as well. As she mentioned, SDG&E is very much involved in the UAS drone space, and we certainly benefit from the talent that we have here, both in South County, but then also in the greater San Diego region. Really comprises a exceptional ecosystem that as an end user we benefit from as we look for cost savings initiatives, some of which are related to drones. So with that being said, we'll move into introducing our panelists, starting with Paul Gutkian. He's Vice President of Engineering with Qualcomm Technologies. As Vice President at Qualcomm, Mr. Gutkian is responsible for corporate engineering services, including company-wide responsibility for regulatory engineering and compliance. He's responsible for electromagnetic compatibility, EMC, and regulatory certification of new wireless technologies being introduced into different market segments, including consumer electronics, automotive, aviation, industrial, and medical markets. He works directly with Qualcomm customers and industry groups as well as country regulators. He's worked with the FAA, FCC, and FDA in the U.S. to ensure streamlined processes for device development and ease of radio certification. In 2016, Paul leveraged his experience with the FAA and obtained clearance for unmanned aircraft systems, UAS, testing at Qualcomm San Diego campus, which is within a few miles of an active military air station controlled Class B airspace, making Qualcomm the first commercial company to receive an FAA authorization for UAS flights in Class B airspace. Prior to joining Qualcomm, in 1996, Mr. Guckian held positions with a number of European-based companies where he was responsible for design and certification for both commercial and military projects. It's an honor to introduce Paul, and he'll take a few minutes to introduce the work that he's doing at Qualcomm. As a pilot that's flown in and out of that airspace, I can certainly appreciate the challenges that he's had to overcome in obtaining that certification. With that, Paul.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. It really is a pleasure to be here, represent Qualcomm. Thank you for the invitation. I was reminded not that long ago that San Diego is the home of the drone, the phone, and the genome. I think we're the phone part, hopefully, is number one. We're still there. But this is where I think this is such an exciting opportunity. When you think we're all challenged with looking at adjacent businesses. So the phone, we all have phones, is becoming quite saturated. So you see Qualcomm into these adjacent markets of automotive, medical, and robotics, and this is where drone comes into place. Of course, all of you representing the defense companies, you've been in drones forever. San Diego is the home of the drone, where there's a lot of these technologies that have already been developed. And so having this combination of companies looking at this adjacent market, I think San Diego is really showcase opportunity around drones, and that's why we're all here today. So I appreciate that opportunity. Let me see if I can work this. I won't talk too much about this. I think everyone knows Qualcomm. We're not the stadium. As people keep asking me, can I get tickets? And I say, sorry, I don't even know where it is. But we've been around for 30 years. We're a good neighbor to Miramar and all the support they've given us, as well as other businesses. And again, we really have never, we've always had our home in San Diego, and we hope to keep it here. So we very much support the local businesses and opportunities. We're still number one in the semiconductor space as a fabless company. We're employing over 30,000 people worldwide, and 12,000 of those are in San Diego. So as we look at these adjacent markets, we're actually not moving too far from core technologies. So Qualcomm, obviously connectivity is a very strong part of our business, developing all the Gs, if you like, the 2G, 3G, 4G, and now 5G, as well as investing in lots of other things you can do with your phone, which makes it smart. And that's where a lot of these other technologies have come into play with machine learning and things I'll talk about and also show you what I mean. This next slide is really that snapshot. Sorry, I have to keep turning around here, of what we have to offer. So connectivity, I think, is clear. We're all using cell phones. But this, you're adding more and more into the cell phone. So we spend a lot of time on computing. Positioning is a very key technology for us. And then you'll hear, this topic of machine learning. I think before we talked about artificial intelligence, and they made movies about that. It spooked everybody. So now we just change the name and call it machine learning, but it's still the same scary stuff. So those are the kind of technologies. Video, again, cameras, very important to your smartphone. So when you think about drones, the flying cameras in the consumer space, but in the inspection space with SDG&E, doing a lot of inspection using different sensors, including video, it's a very important feature. And getting all that technology into a drone is the opportunity for Qualcomm, and I think in combination with other technologies makes a very powerful offering. The applications, we've moved from these consumer drones being a nuisance to people starting to think about, wow, they could be useful, especially in the public service space. Agriculture, lots of benefits there as you're inspecting crops, actually influencing irrigation, how you treat those crops, where the yields are going up. All of that's being done today in these rural environments. And this is really where people are innovating, right? If you kind of build these platforms, they come out with all sorts of businesses. If you think about the smartphone and look at all the businesses came from smartphone, Uber, Amazon, banking, everybody's using their smartphone. Everyone has innovated around this capability. And the same will be true for the drone in this commercial space that we're looking at. What that looks like in terms of a concept of operations, I just put one up here just to let people see what this looks like.
911, what is your emergency? Yes, I need help. My husband's having an asthma attack. He's in really bad shape, and we're in the middle of nowhere on Twin Peaks Trail.
Dispense medication and generate flight plan.
Okay, ma'am, I've confirmed we have help on the way, and I'm contacting flight control.
Routing medical drone, all clear. Flight time 3 minutes.
So just point out a couple of things there. Obviously, this was a cellular connected drone. Actually, we flew in Class B airspace with our approval, and just showing this application. But this is just a concept that we have going. When I talk about this intelligence, artificial intelligence, another short video of what that looks like, and I can talk you through this. So this is a drone flying around. It's inside a building, and it's actually has onboard computing and intelligence that recognizes different objects. And there's two drones flowing, one in front, and you'll see it recognizes different objects that it has to navigate around. So one of the challenges of drones is getting in and out of places. It's no longer, drones are at an airport. They're actually in a city. The city has become the airport as these drones are going to be taking off and landing. So this kind of technology is important to navigate different objects. If you can see it, you can avoid it, and you can see it get faster and faster. I'll move this on because some people start throwing up soon. It's like the goggles, you start to get a little bit nauseous. So that's what that looks like. A little bit on the LTE connectivity, what we have been doing in San Diego. So here we're looking at, okay, how good is the cellular network to connect to these drones? So this is just showing calling into the tower. We have to call into Miramar like an F-18. They love us, they said, yeah. We have people from Miramar here, thank you. So, a phone, when a phone's on the ground, it sees multiple towers, but actually when a drone goes into the air, it sees many more towers, and that's what this is illustrating. It's also seeing those towers very far away. And this is really just to highlight that, the cellular network is very good for providing connectivity, even command and control to drones, as well as payload. If you want to bring video directly from the drone, it can be done very readily. Again, this is shot up at San Diego Qualcomm R&D campus, and Miramar is just off to the right there. You'll see them maybe show up. So very important work that we're doing to inform the FAA around how this technology can be leveraged for the safe introduction of drones. Where there are people and properties, there's very good cell network, and that's why we're really saying, look, this is an asset that should be looked at for connectivity of drones as they move in and out of different environments in the city. So I will end it there, as I have taken up enough of my time. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Paul. Very impressive technology. Next panelist is Robert Walker, Senior Director, Market and Proposals of General Atomics Aeronautical. As Senior Director of Market and Proposals for General Atomics, Rob Walker is responsible for overall leadership and direction of market and public relations and competitive proposals, supporting both the company's aircraft systems and mission systems business units. General Atomics manufactures, supports, and operates a variety of combat-proven, highly reliable, remotely piloted aircraft systems, as well as cutting-edge radars, electro-optic, and related mission systems for military and commercial applications worldwide. Prior to joining General Atomics in 2013, Mr. Walker was the program and proposal manager for G2 software systems with responsibility for 67 million systems engineering, technical analysis, contract, and support of U.S. Army Joint Tactical Networking Center. He previously served as Senior Director of Government Programs for Sellers. Additionally, he led the development, manufacturing, integration, and deployment of sophisticated hardware and software systems deployed on Virginia and Los Angeles class submarines as Business Unit Vice President for Product Manufacturing and Epelson System Solutions. While at Booz Allen Hamilton, he directed several program management service teams in support of Department of Defense acquisition programs for C-41 SR system development and fielding. As a retired commander of the U.S. Naval Services, Mr. Walker spent 14 years on active duty serving as submarine liaison officer with Commander Cruiser Destroyer Group 1, navigation operations officer with Commander Cruiser Destroyer officer of the USS Buffalo, senior tactics instructor at the Naval Submarine Training Center, Pacific Division officer of the USS La Jolla, and supply officer of the USS Greeling. He earned the distinction of warfare qualification in submarines and is a graduate of the Naval Nuclear Propulsion Program. Mr. Walker graduated from SDSU with master's degrees in business administration and chemistry. He also holds a Bachelor's of Science degree in chemistry from the University of the Pacific. Please join me in welcoming Rob to the panel. Obviously, a very impressive background experience.
Well, it's an absolute thrill to be here, and with regards to the moniker that Paul just said, phones, drones, and genomes. I really like that, but the one thing I will caveat here is we call them remotely piloted aircraft. San Diego is unique in its ability to bring both defense, technology, and a very robust number of academic institutions to the region. It's probably it's probably in the top 2 or 3 in the nation, the ability to be able to say that we truly have a technology hub here in San Diego that collaborates, innovates, and interfaces with a variety of different industries. So a little bit about General Atomics. So the amazing thing about, and we're celebrating our 25th anniversary this year. Been in business as well as an acquisition of Leading Systems, which Jim, who formerly of General Atomics, gave me a little bit of history, and I'm greatly appreciative of that. We started off with Leading Systems, specifically the NAT drone. I'll get to that in just a moment, but essentially that started a journey of 25 years of building aircraft, and we are the world's benchmark. Nobody else can claim anywhere near the number of flight hours that we have amassed over the last 25 years, 4.3 million flight hours. And in 2016 alone, we achieved 565,000 of those, and that's growing every year. Another interesting benchmark here is the fact that those 4.3 million flight hours, 90% of those were flown in combat. So from just a pure timeline perspective, every second of every day, over 60 Predator series aircraft are airborne worldwide. This is a little bit of an eye chart, and I apologize, but no, I really don't apologize. This is 25 years. This is 25 years of history in the remotely piloted aircraft industry. 23 variants developed over the last 26 years, and a lot of those are still flying. You can get a feel for the growth and essentially what these aircraft are doing as you look at the hyperbolic trajectory of this curve. Facilities, we are almost entirely located in Southern California. Most of our operations are here in San Diego, up in Poway. We maintain 3 flight operation centers, 2 up in the Victorville area at Gray Butte and El Mirage. And we've just opened another flight operations in Yuma, Arizona, specific to our Predator XP, which is our exportable variant in Yuma, Arizona. Currently at about 7,700 employees locally, almost 10,000 worldwide. And the company has just been growing by leaps and bounds. I would be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about the aircraft, a family of aircraft. 4 principal airframes, Avenger, which is our turbofan aircraft, Predator B, which is really our flagship. This is the one that you all read about and hear about in the news. Gray Eagle, that is a relatively new program where we're selling a heavy fuel variant to the U.S. Army, specifically to support their ISR and combat operations. And then I briefly mentioned Predator XP, which is our exportable variant, and we're selling those obviously internationally and with our latest sale to the UAE. Last year was a big year. We made a number of different enhancements to the 4 principal airframes, and all of it was in terms of how we addressed persistent ISR or endurance, specifically with a longer wing, with more capacity, fuel capacity. It's allowing our aircraft to stay aloft much longer and provide that support to the warfighter. One thing I want to note before I turn this over is that you all are probably pretty familiar with our military operations, but over the last several years, we've made a big push into other activities. Probably the most noteworthy is support of a recent California wildfire where our NASA customer took one of our infrared pods and essentially mapped the wildfire and essentially was able to provide real on-the-ground intelligence for mapping, first of all, the fire, and second of all, directing in the responders. So that's company overview in a nutshell, and I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Rob. Next panelist is Jim Edwards, Senior Vice President, General Counsel, and Corporate Secretary for Cubic Corporation. Prior to his current position at Cubic, Jim served as the Vice President, General Counsel, and Secretary of Cubic's Transportation Segment since 2008. Prior to that, he worked at several other companies, including both Qualcomm and General Atomics. Edwards received his Juris Doctorate from the University of San Diego School of Law. He also received his Bachelor of Science degree in Psychology from Colorado State University. Please join me in welcoming Jim to the panel.
Thanks very much. Enjoy being here. You probably look at my little bio here and wonder why he can't hold a job, but it's been interesting working at the different companies and seeing different technologies. So I think we have a video.
Cubic is an extraordinary company that has taken technology to solve customers' problems. We provide situational awareness for our customers today in the transportation and defense domains.
Military forces, both in the U.S. and around the world, would not be ready for the very difficult and very complex missions without solid training and readiness. It's about looking around the corner for the next training solution. So when you think about gaming technology and virtual training and so forth, Cubic is at the leading edge of both defining and providing that to our customers.
Cubic Transportation Systems helps our customers do the very difficult job of moving millions of people every single day. People that are trying to get to work, trying to get to play, and just trying to move around the cities that they live in. We have a vision called Next City, which is all about providing consumers proactive, personalized information that help them manage their day and providing government tools that help manage the city.
Cubic Mission Solutions is a new business within Cubic Corporation. It's focused on the C4ISR market space, and really what we're trying to do for our customers is provide them solutions that enable them to have spectrum and information dominance. We're also innovating through acquisition. One example is Gator Technologies. The team at Gator invented the concept of an inflatable antenna, and that allows expeditionary forces to parachute in with satellite communication capabilities.
Whether it's training, whether it's transportation, it's taking those pieces of data that exist in many, many sources and actually turning it into something that changes your day, changes your life, changes your training experience.
It's the difference between having data that describes something and taking precise actions to improve the user experience.
One of our goals is to create more efficiency. We're talking about traffic signals, we're talking about lights, we're talking about bikes, we're talking about parking. The more of those nodes that we put together, the more efficient the city's going to run.
It's about being able to provide patrons real-time information as to when their bus is coming, as opposed to going down to the bus stop and waiting for their scheduled service, which may be either early or late.
We've been a company of many, many firsts. We were the first company to invent the Top Gun system.
We were the first to bring magnetic stripe ticketing. We're the first to launch contactless bank cards, and we're leading the way with mobile phone payments in transit.
We want to do something new. We don't want to just stick with what's already been done or what's already out there.
Once we see where the customer's roadmaps are, we actually will invest our own money and push the envelope to give them a solution.
They're at the tip of the spear, and we have to make sure that they're as safe as they can be and effective as they can be.
It's very important to know that what we do is not just all about earning a paycheck. What we do means a lot to the quality of people's lives.
What's at stake in cities is people's time, efficiency. On the battlefield, what's at stake are people's lives.
Well, you see, they didn't send the lawyer out on his own. They had a video with me. So just a little bit more about Cubic. The company's established in 1951. It's one of the oldest companies in San Diego. The founder, Walter Zabel, passed away in 2012, so the company's been through a lot of transitions since then. As you saw from the video, we have two lines of business in the defense arena and in public transit. We have about 1,200 employees in San Diego and about 8,100 worldwide. And I think we're in something like 46 countries that we do business in. The relevance to this particular panel is in communications. We do data links with unmanned air systems, and you saw from the Gator, we have these satellite technologies and communications that allow that kind of communication out on the edge. And we have the air combat training systems, which are making leaps and bounds from what you saw in the movie Top Gun to what's going to be on the F-35 and even another technologies that enhance current aircraft for training way beyond what the original capability of the airplane is now for the air combat training. So I think that'll wrap it up for me.
Thank you, Jim. Our next panelist is Mike Rondowski. Mike's the Vice President of Operations in Aerostructures. He's been with UTC Aerospace Systems for 23 years. Mike is responsible for 6 manufacturing facilities located in California, Texas, Alabama, Mexico, and China. He is currently based out of the Chula Vista, California facility. Prior to his current role in the Aerostructures business unit, Mike was the Vice President of Operations for Aircraft Wheels and Brakes business unit. He also served in the role of Director of Supply Chain for Aircraft Wheels and Brakes and Director of Operations for manufacturing facilities located in Colorado and California. Mike began his career with UTC Aerospace Systems as a manufacturing engineering co-op in the sensors and integrated systems, ice protection systems value stream facility located in West Virginia. After graduation, Mike entered the manufacturing leadership program and rotated through various manufacturing, engineering, and leadership positions at ISR Systems, Aircraft Wheels and Brakes, and Landing Gear business units located across the United States. Outside of work, Mike is an active member of several community organizations. He enjoys coaching youth sports and spending time with his family in various sports and other outdoor activities. Mike has a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering from Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University, go Hokies, and an MBA with a dual concentration in Finance and Marketing from the University of Colorado at Colorado Springs. Mike, his wife, and 2 children live in San Diego. Please join me in welcoming Mike to the panel.
Thank you. So it's good to get introduced by a fellow Hokie. So good morning, and thank you for inviting me here to the panel discussion today. It's a great opportunity for us to connect within this region and look for opportunities both to learn from each other and to work together through collaboration and adjacencies, as we've had other panelists mention. Yeah, I think it's important to have these events for that specific reason. If you look at the panelists alone, we have, I'll give the UTC Aerospace Systems example. Jabil is a supplier to us, and we supply to General Atomics. So just in this panel alone, we have a value chain represented here at the table. And it's important for us to be working together to understand where we can benefit from each other, and specifically in this region. So I have a quick video on UTC Aerospace Systems in total. UTC Aerospace Systems is a large company, part of UTC, United Technologies Corporation in total. UTC does lots of things, among which include Otis Elevators, Carrier Heating and Air Conditioning, Pratt & Whitney aircraft engines, and then UTC Aerospace Systems, which is an aggregation of what used to be 2 businesses, Hamilton Sundstrand and Goodrich Corporation. So I'll talk more specifically about UTC Aerospace Systems and Aerostructures after the video, which I think is next, and we'll go from there.
Every great endeavor starts somewhere. Every groundbreaking achievement, every unimaginable milestone, every dream has a starting point. And for more than a century, that starting point has been UTC Aerospace Systems. We've pioneered some of aviation's earliest breakthroughs. We were there when Lindbergh crossed the Atlantic and man first set foot on the moon. We helped propel the Allies to victory as they defended freedom in the skies. Today, UTC Aerospace Systems continues to lead the industry. We're twice as large as any other aerospace systems company. Every second, somewhere in the world, a commercial flight takes off with our equipment on board. And at this very moment, there are approximately 2.5 million of our components in the air. We start it, power it, land it, stop it, light it, monitor it, control it, quiet it, ventilate it, and protect it. At UTC Aerospace Systems, we soar with a spirit of innovation. Each and every one of our 41,000 employees thrives in our diverse, creative environment and pushes technology to new heights. We invest millions of dollars in research and development, and each day we aim to be the best and focus on putting customers first. Our presence in the skies stems from our presence across the globe. Our Customer Response Center provides around-the-clock service 365 days a year. Together, we develop and support technological innovations that make air travel smarter, safer, and more sustainable. And our dedication to safety and sustainability starts long before our solutions ever leave the ground. Since 2006, we've reduced waste in our operations by 26%, water usage by 16%, emissions by 46%, and greenhouse gases by 20%. It's our way of helping to ensure minimal impact on the planet as we set out to change the world. And changing the world is exactly why we're here. By putting people, customers, communities, and innovation first, we are creating the things that allow us to go farther, reach higher, and do more than anyone ever dared dream. And we're doing it as one company, because we are the very best at what we do. And the sky truly is the limit.
So that's a lot more exciting than I could have described it. I come armed with videos too. So just a couple of slides to give a real quick overview of what we do here in San Diego, or specifically in Chula Vista. So we're located just a few miles south of here, right on the bayfront. It was a company that was originally founded by Fred Rohr in the early part of the 1900s. So Rohr has been in this area for many, many years, and some of the parts of that video that were shown were because of this business unit in particular. The connection to the Spirit of St. Louis and Lindbergh's flight across the ocean. We, here at this location, made some of the components for that aircraft. We also were very prevalent in supporting the B-24 Liberator aircraft power packs, so basically the engines and then the cells that went on that aircraft for the war effort. So a lot of activity in the first half of the 1900s. Rohr was eventually purchased by Goodrich Corporation in the late 1990s, and then more recently was purchased by United Technologies in the last handful of years. So quite a bit of change, lots of technology. We've been here for a very long time. The Chula Vista campus is primarily focused on the business unit headquarter activities, as well as engineering, design, and development. And just a quick snapshot of what our primary product is within Aerostructures. So we make everything that goes around an aircraft engine. We, within our business, also do the aircraft engines themselves. Pratt & Whitney makes those, as well as other aircraft manufacturers. But we make the inlets, fan cowls, thrust reversers, and exhausts. And the easiest way to think about our product is it controls airflow into the aircraft, making sure that there's enough air intake to operate properly. We control the sound, so when it's taking off, all the noise that gets created, we absorb that noise and make the engines quieter and more efficient. And then when the aircraft lands, we help to stop the aircraft with the thrust reversers. And one of the other interesting things is now we have another challenge out there. So we have bird strike tests. I don't know if anybody of you know about what that is, but we'll actually ingest birds into the engine, and we have to contain that. The engine gets damaged significantly, so we have a lot of flight safety equipment. Now we've got a new challenge with drone strikes that are out there, so also have something else to avoid these days. But very, very glad to be here, and look forward to the questions and the panel discussion that are upcoming.
Thank you, Mike. Our next panelist is Daryl Annunziato. He's the CEO of Action Drone, an American drone manufacturer in San Diego. He has a devotion for aerial remote control devices and entrepreneurship. That's what drove him to launch Action Drone Incorporated, back with an MBA and Bachelor in Arts in Psychology and Industrial Organization, alongside the Action Drones team of engineers, technicians, and business developers. It has become a fulfilling passion for Action Drones to help others advance in the job market while investing back into youth community projects and training programs. At SDG, we actually had Action Drones come on property recently and say it's very impressive. Their offerings are very impressive, and along with their flight capabilities. So please join me in welcoming Daryl to the panel.
Thank you for inviting me up here. It's very humbling to be sitting next to the greats over here. But as they show videos, I'm going to show off a little bit and show a little drone over here and fly it around you guys. This drone is actually was made to teach. As we know, the industry is growing and it's expanding fast, so fast that we believe we won't have enough people to actually man the industry itself. And so let me fly this real quick because I'm really nervous flying this. But it shouldn't hurt you because there's a little tiny little dude that's actually for little kids. So hopefully I don't crash it. Now this thing has actually a little camera in front of it. So what it does is it has dual purpose, and kids can graduate they can basically use this as their first tool to get their foot in the door in the drone industry. For us, our initial goal is to make sure that the industry in itself, when it starts growing, that we're there for the masses to actually be able to get in when they want to. Now, brief history of our company. We're very young. We're 4 years old. I'm sitting next to very impressive people that I used to just read on magazines and kind of look up to and probably get a little fan page thing with them later. But in any case, it's nice to be here. And my history is that I started this in a garage, actually my room. And 4 years ago, or 5 years ago, I asked my wife, I want to quit my job and I need a new hobby. And so I asked her if I can buy a piano. She said no, because it's too expensive. So I said, let me buy an airplane. And she said yes. And that airplane, a little RC airplane, I basically mounted the first GoPro that came out. And so when I mounted that GoPro and I looked at the video, that kind of dawned on me. It's like, I can post this on YouTube. And then so I did. And when I posted that on YouTube, I had people ask me if they can buy what I just built. And that clicked. And so I built 5, and I sold it in a week. And that's how really the company started. I was still in my room until I almost burnt down the house, so she kicked me out. And luckily for us, that was also the first time, that was a year later, that was the first time a big company actually asked us to develop a drone for them to do some power line inspection. And so when we did that, it really transformed our business from doing something fun to doing something serious and fun and now dangerous. So with the help of big companies like them, we're hoping to actually grow our own business in a much safer environment and much safer way. But before anything else, I'm gonna play a video so you guys can have a better understanding of our current projects. So basically right now, our current projects, we're being bombarded by industries actually asking us to help develop their ability to use drones to enhance their capabilities of inspection or other things that are required that are hazardous, usually to be done by humans. So one of our current project is wind turbine inspections. We just signed a contract to inspect 55 countries, and it's going to be around 40,000 wind turbines that we have to do. Before that, they would manually inspect these wind turbines by actually climbing using ropes. And they would rappel down, and these wind turbines are in farms that have over 45 to 50 mile per hour winds. And so with our drones, we're now able to inspect wind turbines in a much more accurate way, because the way they did it is that when the guy rappels down, they literally take a pen and paper and they write down what the damage is. And then they do that, and it takes them about a day to do one wind turbine inspection. With our systems and our capabilities, we're now able to do 22 turbines a day. And we're able to do it with cameras that have high ability to actually capture the images. And so for the companies like these wind turbine companies, we are now able to deliver a much better information for them to make sure that their efficiency increases and their safety increases. And so we're now in the process of developing a lot of these type of procedures, not just for the wind turbines, but also power lines, gas and electric, and all these other industries that are going to come along and needing this type of business. And the other thing that we realized is that there's not enough manpower to do this. And so we've also worked with the City College, San Diego City College, to actually start having classes for high school and college kids that want to get into this business. And so that program starts in June, and it's going to be modular, where it's a step process. If they want to get into the design aspect of it, the manufacturing aspect of it, and also the industrial piloting of these drones. And so hopefully in the South Bay area, we'll grow and bring some jobs here, and not just in the Chula Vista and South Bay area, but also around the world. So that's us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Daryl. Our next panelist is Janine Benuelos. She's the HR manager with NIPRO. She's also a bilingual, bicultural HR professional who's been working in the HR field for about 17 years. She started her career in Tijuana, Mexico, and then worked in Arizona and California, with most recently here at Jabal Packaging Solutions. She loves her job and is especially passionate about training and developing people. She has a law degree in international law, specialized in mediation and arbitration. She studied in the U.S., Mexico, and Europe. On a personal note, she has 2 boys, 7 and 9, who are the light of her life and who she loves to spend time with when she's not working. Please join me in welcoming Janine to the panel.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here. I feel very privileged, very honored to be on this panel. We are in the plastic injection molding business, but more importantly, we're in the people business. We couldn't be here without our people, so I brought a small video so you guys could get to see some of our people that make this happen. So Mojo for us means that, do you have team spirit? Are you compromised? Are you engaged? And so I think it's important that I'm here to represent my company, my people, so I wanted you guys to get to know a little bit about them. So this is these are the products that we produce. We actually do plastic injection molding. I don't know if you guys know what plastic injection molding is, but this container of water is made with plastic injection molding. We produce high density containers, and what they do is that they carry sealants, and these sealants go out into aerospace. They're used to fabricate airplanes. The sealants, they go around the windows on the airplanes, and so we have a very specialized industry because we can't just use any container, because if you can imagine, the sealant goes into space in a container that doesn't meet the quality specifications and it explodes. It could be a problem. So, or you're flying in a plane and the window breaks through because the sealant wasn't mixed correctly. That could also be a problem. So we take our job extremely seriously, and we know that what we do is very, very important to the lives of a lot of people. So these are what our products look like on the top. They have different color, and they're based on the customer specifications. So each different container contains a different sealant, and that's how they identify it. So I put some pictures up there of what we use for the aircraft window sealant, the airplane wing. And so it's very interesting because when I first started working there and I saw a bunch of plastic containers, I wanted to take them home for my kids to play with because, they look like so much fun. Yeah. And then they were like, no, Jenny, that's a really bad idea. These are really expensive. They're very specialized. So I'm still waiting for maybe one day they'll let me take some, but not yet. So why are they important? Well, they're important because in the past, a lot of these sealants were used, the people that had to apply them had to do them by hand, and obviously these are hazardous materials. So of course, people to us are very, very important, as you could tell from our video, and to us it makes a big difference that now they're doing it with these containers, and so people aren't having to deal with these hazardous materials that could obviously cause danger to their health, so that gives us a lot of pride. It also eliminates waste. And we try to improve every day our product, our quality. We're very big on training and developing our people. We want to be we want to impact our community in the sense that we want to develop jobs for the growing community, for the new generations that are coming. We see a lot of gaps in the technical skills. Unfortunately, some of these great tool makers, artisans, process technicians, they don't, they're either retiring or, their new generation is not so interested in becoming a technician. I think maybe because they think that they make less money as a technician than they do maybe as a professional engineer or a lawyer. And what's very interesting to me, or been very interesting to me in working with Jabil, is that some of these technicians make more money than me. So sometimes I think maybe I chose the wrong career path. But what we're doing is we're reaching out to the high schools, we're reaching out to the community, the parents. Sometimes you have a child who says, I don't want to go to a 4-year college. That's not what I want to do. I want to make money fast. As we know, the generations, they're moving very quickly. And so what we're trying to do is say, you know what, there's options out there. You can have a good lifestyle, you can make good money, you can have job stability, and you just have to go to school for about 2 years. And not only that, we'll hire you at the beginning and we'll put you through an apprenticeship program. We'll pay you a lot more than minimum wage. So it's a win-win situation, and our goal is that the community can see this and they can support us, because our company just invested millions of dollars in a project to renovate our plant. Our plant looked, when I first got there, like it had been stuck in the 70s, and now we look like we're into the 2000s, so I'm excited. So they've invested a lot of money. We're here to stay. We want to grow, and we want people to come work for us. So just so you know, we love what we do. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Janine. That was a great video. We're gonna push ahead. I think we're a little bit behind schedule, so we're gonna go right into the questions. If you need a moment to stretch your legs, please do so. But we're gonna press ahead. So with that, it's gonna be an open format. I'll ask a question, and then any one of the panelists can decide to answer it. If it's not answered in a timely manner, then we'll push on to the next question. So once we get through the questions, we'll have an opportunity for audience Q&A. I believe the procedure is going to be to write it down on a note card, and then it'll be filtered and presented to the panelists via the note card. First question for the panelists is talking to future growth in the aerospace aviation industry within the area, region, employees, perhaps additional locations. If you could feel free to chime in regarding additional growth that we see in the region.
Well, I'll start. One of our areas for Cubic is in our mission solutions. That was the satellite communications. And we're doing a lot of innovation in that area, both with ground and airborne antennas that kind of push the envelope. So we have a lot of interesting plans to build out that area, both through acquisitions and through internal innovations. So we see that's a big area for us, and driving that is getting the right people to come in and work with us.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, I mean, staying with the innovation theme, I look at, again, this adjacent market as opportunity and challenges. So we talk about all this cool technology, but there's problems to be solved, and technology plays a part there. When I think about, turbines having to survive drones, the material comes into play in that there's this term frangible. Okay, if a drone does hit an engine, does it come apart and cause very little damage to the extent that it doesn't compromise the safety of the aircraft? So a whole opportunity in materials and technology development there beyond electronics. So I really, I work with the FAA on a lot of the challenges they're facing on integration. So you come into the data systems, flight management. So you're going to have a lot of drones, a lot more than airplanes, in and around other aircraft, in and around people and properties that all have to be managed and protected. And so it's a great space for innovation. And the military have solved many of these. They talk about cooperative aircraft going in and out. Drones are going in and out of airports today with manned aircraft. A lot of these solutions that my colleagues here are providing to the military can certainly be leveraged.
Yeah, let me add to that real quick, because General Atomics, we're making a similar investment in aerospace integration, and we're the first company to develop and build from the ground up a certifiable aircraft for operation in both segregated and unsegregated airspace. As part of that, and this is where the innovation and the technology comes into play, is that you see areas in payload development. We're specifically developing a due regard radar to operate with a TCAS-2 to formulate what we're calling a detect and avoid system that will be fielded on our, we're calling it the Air Force has designated it MQ-9B, Some of our press releases have designated as a type certifiable product, and that was really when the product was in development, but it's the next generation of our flagship MQ-9. But so the payload piece of it, the data length, and specifically addressing the bandwidth issue for data transmission, and then materials is part of this design structure, developing from the ground up. We really had to take a whole new perspective on the materials that are going into the aircraft. So those are growth areas for us, and I'm hearing a common theme here on the panel. Thank you.
Well, let me just add to that. So first off, let me thank you guys for building new technology to protect airplanes from drones like ours. But in any case, some of our developments, not necessarily all the way technology only. And so some of the developments that we're doing is to train the proper way, because even though it's a drone and we think it's unmanned, there's still a human factor behind it. And most of the time, these drones, if there are any failures or anything like that, a lot of times it's human error. And so if we want to eliminate that and give them, we want to make sure that they don't get any problems, we want to train it from the ground up, where the people are actually very good at what they do. And so that's a piece that we're doing in the South Bay County.
Thank you, Daryl. That actually serves as a great lead-in for our next question. What's the next big thing? What's the opportunity that's out there, whether it be at a macro level for aviation, aerospace, or even down to micro level at the individual companies?
I'll take the first comment on this one, and it is a great segue from the last conversation. I think the common theme, one of the common things you heard was advanced materials. Materials really make all of our products operate more efficiently and more productively. And advancing those materials is extremely important to each of our industries because it can give us and should give us competitive advantages in the marketplace. Working with economic development groups to make sure that there is a cluster of support within the region is extremely important, from the university level to research centers, where there also then can be collaboration across industries. And it's not just the materials, but when any of us designs new things, then we have to design new ways to make them and operate them, as you just heard even from Action Drone. So it creates a whole lot of new things to go and learn how to do things differently. So manufacturing capability, whether it's things like 3D printing of materials and all of the new ideas that are out there, figuring out how to do them properly so it delivers the win-win solutions for businesses and the employees. The other part I think is relevant that a number of the panelists have mentioned is also the data, the information flow that we're getting, and just when I watched the video for Action Drone, all that information is really, really important, and looks like they've done an exceptional job in using the example of wind turbines, collecting that data, making the business more efficient, and we all need that. So the next level of productivity, the next industrial revolution is what oftentimes you hear with the data, things connected to each other. That creates a problem. It creates a problem of lots of data. And it needs to be managed well, analyzed well, and put into action so we can actually do something with it. I think, like I said, Action Drone has a great example of it that they showed. We all have that opportunity, and that's one of certainly the next big things for us at United Technologies.
Yeah, just to comment on that, and he's very right. Processing data, collecting data, and basically finding a way to minimize the time that data is being processed is very crucial to our industry. As you know, drones are there to collect data. So imagine when we have thousands of drones in one city collecting data. How are we going to get all this data processed? And it's going to be a nightmare. And so with us, the future of some of the things that we're doing is not just making drones, but finding the applications. So to give you guys an example, we are in Panama with our partners to actually figure out how to increase the output of sugar in sugar canes. And every single sugar cane will now be able to increase their output by at least 10%, which is a big deal. And so for us, those are the type of things that we're looking for. What can industry do? What can the other industries do to increase what they want to do and profitability using drones? And that's why we're here to actually always listen to different businesses so that we can learn from them and use drones in a better way.
Yeah, I'd like to tee off on the training comment because that's a big area for Cubic, where we do a lot of training, both ground and air, and we do it in ways that are, the very traditional training to using gaming technology. And for example, we have a product we're working with the Navy on with training the crews for the littoral combat ship with gaming technology and avatars. And that kind of training is extraordinarily effective, and we're seeing a retention of the training. And that can be applied across the board. We've had contracts with commercial airlines to do the training for their cabin crews. So the people have to get regular training, refresher training, and now people go back to a central location to take that training, but this kind of training can be done when a person's on the road, for example. It can be used for training, actually flying aircraft. It's pretty amazing for us. And so that's a big thing for us, and we see that particularly in an era of tight budgets that like the military wants to be very effective, and just like training aircraft crews, you can only spend so much time in the air because those planes are pretty expensive to be flying around. So different ways to keep the crews current and even more sophisticated ways of enhanced combat training. So that's a big thing for us.
Excellent. Thank you. The next question is, what's the biggest missed opportunity? I hit on, appreciate the responses in regards to data and training, but what are we not doing that we could be doing?
I could say the missed opportunity is if you don't diversify and you don't look ahead and take these risks. You look at Qualcomm, right? I would say, we were probably a little bit slow to diversify in these markets. You diversify through acquisitions. So I think, you look at these opportunities of, data management, both onboard and offboard, and then you look at your core technologies and start thinking about how you can diversify and be ready to take some risks. The drone business will grow. It'll obviously be paced by regulation as well as people's appetite for things buzzing around them. But look at assisted driving. There's a lot of data going on in cars today to assist drive. Autonomous, even I'm not too happy about that anytime soon, but it will come because of safety. I also heard, interestingly, environmentals talked about. Again, if you can do things from a sustainable perspective, and if it's about going and inspecting something, electric meter, and you send a drone rather than send a vehicle, you got to think about things like that. You can really innovate in these areas as well of sustainability and environmental.
Well, some of the missed opportunities in our industry because we're so new. One of them is infrastructure. As you already know, when the internet age or the computer age happened, Google does not make money off just selling data, but also applications that are developed by third-party companies. Now, that's kind of what we want to do. We want to have third-party companies or other people actually developing applications for us so that we can better understand how else we can serve the world's industries. Because San Diego doesn't have everything here. We don't have sugar plantations, we don't have banana plantations, we don't have oil pipelines here. So what we're trying to look for is a way to get help, basically, to create developments of these applications. And we can't do it on our own because I'll be broke.
If I could add one thing to that, I would say this is in reference to the infrastructure comment. Yeah, open architecture, open systems architecture is becoming increasingly important in the industry in terms of being able to rapidly develop and rapidly integrate new payload technologies. And there's a lot of really amazing stuff out there in terms of the payload and the sensor technologies. And as the Department of Defense starts insisting upon the open systems architecture, it's going to become increasingly important on industry to be able to adapt to that, because if we maintain the same sort of mindset in terms of development of our various systems, innovative companies that are coming up with some really great technology in terms of maybe possibly electro-optic sensor resolution, synthetic aperture radar, a whole host of SIGINT type pods. It's going to be harder and harder to keep up with the pace of that technology development if as an industry we don't start really becoming what we say all of us say we do this. We have an open systems architecture, but this has got to be further defined and further pursued.
Yeah, if we can build on that thought a little bit and shift just slightly over to challenges and talk to some of the challenges in addition to the missed opportunities.
Well, for General Atomics, one of our biggest challenges is obviously the sequestration and the DoD budget. But what's happened as a result, which has been very interesting, is that it's really caused us to focus globally and internationally in the international markets. And one of the challenges that we have, that maybe not shared with a small UAS industry, is the fact that we're heavily restricted on export policy. There's a originally well-intentioned Missile Technology Control Regime has classified our UAVs as essentially being essentially ballistic missiles, and so we've had to struggle through State Department and policy on how we get past that in terms of selling internationally, because there's a huge demand. And what's happening is that as a result of the export restrictions, the international competitors, China being a big one, is rapidly gaining a market share internationally that's going to be hard to contend with. And so if you want to talk about interoperability and the ability to work specifically with our NATO partners, that's something that's going to have to be addressed. And there's good work going on right now to address that, but I see that as just from an international perspective as being a huge challenge.
Thank you, Rob. Challenges from an infrastructure standpoint. Sure.
Well, I'll shift on the challenges again. For us is recruiting and retaining talent, the right level of education, people with, in software design in particular. California is a tough place to recruit into when we look at the regulatory issues here, high cost of housing, high cost of operating, high taxes, of course. It's really difficult. So we tend to focus our hiring in California on the higher paid type jobs, and unfortunately, some of the jobs at the lower level, we're expanding outside the state. So I don't think any of us like to see that happen, but based on the political climate here, I don't see that changing very soon. So I think that trend will continue.
Thanks, Jim. Janine, would you mind comment on that as well, in terms of what you've seen from an HR standpoint?
Yeah, I agree with him 100%. We have a big challenge retaining our talent, trying to recruit outside of California. Not to mention that we lose a competitive edge, because California is such a difficult state when it comes to human resources, as far as the wage increases. And I think my video said it. I'm all for the people. I think people deserve to make a good living wage. But the problem is when you're competing on a global market, a lot of our business perspectives, they take that into account and they think that our cost of labor is extremely high, and so obviously their margins, their profit are affected, and so they decide to go elsewhere. And we see that every day. The other thing is, to what I mentioned, is just the gap in the technology, in the technical fields, the tool makers, the artisans. A lot of the very good artisans are in the Midwest. When you try to recruit somebody to come to live specifically in San Diego, even if you're offering them an attractive salary, just when they do a comparison of cost of living, they say, no, I can get a house with 5 acres for $230,000. There's nowhere they can touch that here in San Diego. It's hard to try to convince somebody that being by the beach is going to make up for that. So yeah, that's a big challenge for us.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we've all struggled with that from a hiring standpoint. Daryl, I know you mentioned it as well. Anyone comfortable talking to potential solutions or workarounds?
Well, I was thinking of just buying a big house and have shared rooms, but that's probably not going to work. Honestly, that's a potential huge problem for us also. But fortunately for us, a lot of our work requires to be global. And so we're really hoping to find a way so that we expand our training capabilities, not just in San Diego, but also around the world. But in regards to having talent, we're lucky enough, actually, San Diego, California in itself, there's a lot of smart people here. And a lot of military-based companies are here also. And so for me, I'm just scared because I have no solution for it. I don't know how these guys, I'm really depending on these guys to figure it out for me.
Yeah, I mean, Qualcomm spends a lot of money in research and development, and I think what attracts talent is the interest of the work, and that's what we focus on. To be honest, we compete with, the Bay Area. Fortunately, their housing prices are, much worse than us, and they don't have as nice beaches, and so we do sometimes win on the environment that we have in San Diego. But I think, investing in R&D and getting this top talent into jobs that they find interesting, that's really what motivates them. Even actually more than money at times, is some of the big guys are throwing more money, but then the work is not that interesting. So for us, the solution is really kind of continue R&D, continue to offer interesting opportunities, especially to the new grads.
And I'll comment on that as well. It's very similar along the lines of R&D. But really where we benefit from each other and benefit from being here is if we can be more responsive. So research and development as an example, and design centers, collaboration centers, there's lots of locations across the world, across the US, that are really good in certain things for the cluster of industry that's around. So we named a couple. One of them is materials. There are universities in the US that are exceptional at it. And a company needs to be able to rely on that rapid turnaround of available resources in a few different ways. Rapid response for research and development that a company doesn't have to do itself with resources that are on staff the entire time. But that might lead to recruiting talent from those universities into full-time assignments for the business as well. We don't have as much access to some of those things here in San Diego, so I think that's an opportunity that we need to capitalize on and grow. The data conversation is another one. Being able to grow and develop that kind of talent within this region where there's big data cuts across lots of industries. So having a workforce that's very well trained that you have immediate access to is important. When you go to other global locations, They're all trying to do the same things, but we are further ahead in some areas than others. We need to, as a region, continue that growth so that we stay ahead and stay competitive, because we all know the challenges. We all, or many of us, most of us live here. Sunshine, yep, sunshine tax, heard all of those things, but it is harder to recruit people here, and it is more costly. It has to be offset somehow. And the ways to do that are, at least some of the ways that I had mentioned in the last couple minutes.
As we talk about the challenges and potential solutions, what are the thoughts on resiliency? I think David made great points earlier from a government contracting standpoint, and the ebb and flow of those.
So, resiliency. One of the great things about General Atomics is that the company has maintained a very innovative culture over the last, even with 70, almost 8,000 people, we've still been very responsive and even in some measure agile. But the resiliency part of it is, I think, your industry still needs to maintain some level of research and development commitment, and that's what's sustained our business. Essentially, we've identified capability gaps. We, on research and development funding, have gone out and developed the products to address those capability gaps, and subsequently we've been very successful in being able to sell those. So I think it's the ability to be able to continue the research and development and the innovative thread.
And for Cubic, as you saw from the video, we're in 2 different lines of business, so that creates some strength within the company. The transportation business is in, it's still government business, but it's in local government and local transit authorities. And the other part of that is about half of our revenue is outside the United States. So that creates, when there are issues with government funding here in the U.S., that often that it's more robust funding in other parts of the world. So that helps us.
Thank you, Jim. Any thoughts, if we could build on resiliency in terms of more at a macro level, in terms of the economic shifts as we've come out of the Great Recession? I believe now in the 9th year of a bull market. Any thoughts surrounding that?
Well, I'll jump in. So, one of the things, and this goes back to the comments I made a little bit earlier with regards to understanding the industry, knowing what those brand new great technologies that are upcoming, and I think really as part of this, there's a lot of small businesses that are up and coming, got some great ideas, got some great products, and so subsequently is what has to, that's one of the great things about San Diego is there's a lot of that collaboration going on here regionally, but it's got to continue because there's just some amazing things happening out there with regards to the sensor and payload part of the industry.
Thank you, Rob. Thanks for saving me on that one as well.
I'll jump on any grenade.
About diversification, what's being done to diversify to help with resiliency?
Well, in our case, Jabil our parent company is a huge electronic company. So they make most of the electronics in all of the cellular phones that we all carry nowadays. And when they bought our division, Nipro was one of the biggest privately owned plastic injection molding companies. And the reason that they acquired us was because they had this vision of research and development, continuous improvement. And so what we're doing now is we're going towards smart packaging. They're coming up with very interesting projects. I was talking about it earlier. a water bottle that can tell you what your levels of hydration are, for example. So I think if you don't diversify, you don't merge the different strengths of your company and the supporting companies in your community, it's going to, obviously you're not going to evolve. You're going to become a dinosaur in this industry, and you'll eventually become extinct.
Well, to add on to that, diversifying for us means finding new applications, different industries, right? It's actually working. And so our problem is now trying to figure out where we can find a talent pool to actually work these different industries. Because some of these industries that we've found, like surveying, there's a gap between a pilot and a surveyor. Not every surveyor wants to be a pilot, not every pilot wants to understand surveying. And so what we're trying to do is bridge that gap by actually connecting them together and having the experts work with the drone pilots. Now, we know that for us to be sustainable, we need to have a talent pool of pilots out there. And so what we're doing is brainwashing high school kids to actually love drones by creating like racing techniques that are like, hey, you can race drones. But what they don't know is that they're actually learning how to fly drones. But for us, that's a strategy for the future, so that if the industry fails, I fail. And so I need to make sure that the industry grows. And the only way I can do that is to have more people on board and actually love the drone technology.
Thanks, Daryl. We've actually seen a little bit of that with the UAS being an emergent technology at SDG&E in terms of as you look to vendors. They kind of, right now the industry is such that they come and go. How do you build that into your plan in terms of working with the different vendors that emergent technology, and there hasn't been, I think we're yet to see kind of, I guess, a unification of some of those at least.
Yeah, so for us, when we worked with a turbine company, they told us exactly the same thing. They've been testing different vendors and different companies that claim that they have drones and they can do the certain jobs. It always boils down to, can they meet the need of the company? Do they get the data? Are they able to acquire the data properly and accurately? And most of the time, it's because they don't listen. They didn't listen to what the needs were. And they just push their agenda. And they say, hey, I have this technology. I can do this for you. Sometimes the farmer doesn't need more corn. There's enough corn out there to sustain. It could be something else. And that's why for us, we want to make sure we really target this missing information so that the industry in itself will accept, the other industries will accept the drone technology. And so when we standardize that, when we're able to do that, and which is what we did for this turbine company, the industry in itself will grow and succeed. And so that's what we're planning to do.
So I think we all hear, certainly we've all heard about smartphones. Then we talk about smart homes, smart cities, smart cars, smart farms. And that's really, when Qualcomm looks at these are all adjacent markets. Again, problems to be solved where you're bringing efficiencies. The wind turbine is an interesting one in that, okay, what was very manual then became taken over by drones. Now it's about, well, boy, these are farms. What if we had a fleet of drones? We could do in a day, we could do all of them in a day. And so now could you drop a network into that farm and bring up 100 drones where you're doing the windmill inspection much quicker, much more efficiently. So this is where in terms of diversifying into these adjacent markets, you got to look at these problems to be solved where you can build on the efficiencies. So using one drone, great. Using 100 drones, you get a 10x, 100x efficiency gains just from introducing, connectivity type solutions. So that's really the opportunity.
Yeah, I'm really waiting for that. A lot of our technology is really based on getting connectivity, and these farms, they're very isolated. They're in the middle of nowhere. I just got back from Mexico doing some testing, And I can even post on Instagram and how cool I was doing stuff out there. So I'm really hoping that that does happen soon. Like he said, one drone can do so many things, make everything efficient. 100 drones, it's a miracle.
So the emerging markets bring emerging suppliers. Those suppliers, yes, they do come and go early on. Some get very successful and are able to stay on their own accord, but others need a lot of help. So one of the things I would say from our perspective, playing out very live and very real, our needs are changing significantly within our company for the workforce and the skill in lots of ways, including, as markets are emerging, suppliers are emerging, suppliers need help from us. So where we've talked about, whether it's in the news, in political conversations, whatever the case might be for manufacturing in the U.S., we have manufacturing people who are skilled today. We used to make things ourselves a lot more. Now others are making it for us, but they don't necessarily know how to yet. So what we do a lot of is supplier development with emerging suppliers because we aren't successful if they aren't successful. But that's a very unique skill set, to operate within a manufacturing company when you have an infrastructure around you. That's a lot easier to do because there's people who can help. But when you go off on your own and you are deployed and in a special assignment and you're one or a very few number of people deployed in that activity, you need to know how to do it completely on your own, wear lots of hats, and suppliers in these emerging markets sometimes really struggle. So we need to help them. We are putting that kind of workforce in place, but it's also not done very easily with brand new talent because they haven't experienced the war wounds and scars that come along with having difficult circumstances. So the resiliency, first of all, for us then is training our workforce to do those assignments, which are different than working in a factory, the same place every single day. Sometimes it's more travel, but making sure that our network of suppliers is really well positioned to help us because, like I said, their success is our success, or codependent.
Yeah, Mike, appreciate that. That actually leads right into the next question, a lot of which has already been covered, but any additional thoughts on how we can work collaboratively as a region to further enhance the UAS ecosystem that we have in San Diego?
I've talked to many folks actually in this room about Showcase San Diego. It's not a term that I own or have patented, so don't worry about licensing. But I think regulation paces a lot of the innovation in the UAS space. For sure it does, and for a good reason, right? It has to be safe. When you look at San Diego, we probably have one of the most challenging environments with a downtown airport, with all the military installations that need to be protected. And so while people are testing out in the desert and out in farm areas, those are definitely applications that are upcoming and very valuable. But you've got to look at what's the challenges of actually bringing drones into the city for delivery, delivery, emergency response, even runway inspections. The airports themselves want to use drones to inspect runways. And so, we have an opportunity to actually collaborate with different technologies to show the FAA how this could be done safely. So we partner with Miramar. We have a couple other partners. SDG&E's been out to Qualcomm, where we're saying, look, nobody wins if the regulations don't move. The opportunity is there. You have to move the regulation, and we're all clearly committed to safety as number one. And so having drones be seen and also see is critical. Be managed, get out the way when they have to get out the way. Is important. And if you can showcase that, how that technology is used in a complex environment like San Diego, then you become a leader. That's why we made a commitment not to go and test in the desert. For me, I didn't want to manage a bunch of PhDs running around the desert, to be honest. I said I'll just take on the FAA rather than do that. And so that's how we kind of got our clearance, and we got it because said, look, you have a problem. You're going to have a problem when all these applications start to evolve and they want to move inside the cities where there's real useful public service applications. Let's start testing in these environments. Test a bit, innovate a bit to solve, test a bit more. That's how the FAA moves forward, data-driven. So I think, you know, as I've talked to a number of folks in the room about partnering around that, I think, you know, that's something we should think about as a city.
Thank you, Paul. Mike, kind of build on what Paul's comments. You mentioned kind of fostering the vendors that are currently in the area. And in your opinion, is it more about fostering the existing vendors, or trying to encourage more to come to the area to have a sustainable workforce?
So I think it ends up being a little bit of both. So it really depends on the technology that we're looking for. You know, I would say usually, if we've got a good supplier with a proven track record who's looking to evolve themselves, that is the first stop shop, because the speed at which we can innovate is likely faster for things that are building upon proven technology. If it's truly innovative and emerging completely, you know, then oftentimes we might need to do the exact opposite and go outside of our existing supply base, because there's lots of muscle memory in that supply base, lots of paradigms maybe to break. So it ends up being a little bit of both depending on the technology that we're after. We do both. If it's more core manufacturing or product technology that we're using today, then we're likely working with our existing supply network. Relationships are built, contracts are in place. There's just lots of things that we can fast track. But you know, for maybe some advanced materials or unique manufacturing methods, we've got to go outside that network often to make sure that we are exceeding the pace of our competitors. And those can be all over the world. You know, we're fortunate enough in Southern California to have a lot of capability, not just here in San Diego, but, you know, go up just a little further north to Los Angeles. You know, having rapid access to that kind of a cluster for aerospace is important, as long as it's cost competitive. So we do both. We spend lots of time, you know, in this region doing that with existing and new suppliers, as well as around the world with existing and new. And it's all targeted based on the technology that we're using.
Thanks, Mike. I'm getting the notice that we've got about 5 minutes left to get through the remaining questions. So if we could, panelists, if you're comfortable, highlight some of the local efforts that are being made from a workforce standpoint, from hiring or working collaboratively with the vendors.
Well, as far as developing workforce here, we have robust intern programs. So we're trying to, you know, people coming out of the universities that they can work with us during the summer, and then hopefully if they do find the work challenging and interesting, and we can recruit them going forward. So that's one of the things we do, and I think that's very helpful. It's and then as far as just, you know, the regular competitive of talent, I think it's unfortunately we get into a situation where GA hires somebody from Cubic and we go hire somebody from GA, and so there's that movement across the different companies. But that's just the nature of competition, so that's the way it goes. But I think we are trying to look at how we can develop that talent upcoming through out of the universities and have interesting jobs here for those kinds of people, so they stay here and they don't feel like they need to go to Silicon Valley or another state.
For our company, so because it's a new industry, there's really not a lot of manuals or books out there to read to be able to do what we do. So most of the time when we say, hey, do you want to help us, you know, with our drone company, and they usually say, I don't have a master's in engineering. We're like, well, I have a psychology degree. And so what we've done is partnered with San Diego City College, and we've worked with their CAT program, which is a workforce development. And so we just delivered drones to them to actually help teach the basic fundamentals of this new emerging industry. And what it does is it really puts somebody that doesn't want to go to a 2-year school or a 4-year school to be able to work in the industry, because it's not just about the engineering aspect of it. It's also being the labor force of it, like the manufacturing, the servicing. You know, that doesn't require a lot of engineering background to be able to go, you know, farm or go map a farm. And so for us, we're going to work with the local communities, like local schools, to help kind of get people, get kids to be interested in the drone technology, and hopefully we can create a workforce behind it that's new to the industry. And most likely they'll be poached, but it's all right.
And one other point I would make is that, you know, there's a deep reservoir of military talent here as people coming out of the military, and we access that quite a bit as well. And so a lot of the people who retire here want to stay here. So we, you know, that's been an advantage in this region.
Yeah, you know, and I think just to tie those two together, I mean, we do a fair amount of investment in sponsorships with San Diego State, with UCSD, with regards to it. And interestingly enough, and this is to the point that Daryl was making, is that it's typically the robotics industry as a whole that we end up collaborating with at the academic level. But the other thread I want to draw in here is GA, and I meant to bring the statistic, and I don't seem to have it, but we've got a lot of former or retired military working at GA, and I can't, and retired military myself, I just cannot emphasize enough what a talent pool we are so fortunate to have here with our active duty and our veterans.
Yes, I mean, I sympathize with colleagues. You know, Qualcomm grew a great organization with a lot of top talent, and then others entered into that space, and we became the poaching ground for, you know, you name them up in the Bay Area. But you know, we continue to have strong university programs. Actually, we go into the high schools now. We have a lot of tours and really getting kids excited about the new opportunities, robotics and autonomous systems being a real cool thing to be doing. And so we're doing joint projects. We do mentoring programs as well as internships. So even as the university students are working on projects, we have a Qualcomm, you know, PhD assigned to them where they can come in periodically and actually see some real work going on and how it actually makes it into the commercial world. So just kind of broaden the horizon of those students very early on to, you know, the commercial applications is important.
As for our company, we started to have high school teachers come to our plant, and we gave them a tour. We explained the earning potential for their students so that they could start recruiting for us. I thought that would make my job easier. The other thing that we do a lot of is we do a lot of on-the-job training. We're part of the program for the state of California where they do ETP, which is reimbursement for OJT. The apprenticeship program, we're also working with City College to get that off the ground. So I think for us, it's the interest of the new generations so they can fill the gaps that we're seeing, and that they're, you know, seeing that there's alternatives to the traditional career path. I think that if we are able to do that, then we're able to stay in our community, and people are able to stay in our community and contribute as well. And, you know, we can be a partner with them.
Excellent. Thank you, Janine. At this time, we're complete with the formal question answer with our panelists, and we're moving into the audience Q&A. And with that, turn it over to Christina Saro.
Thank you. Christine, come on up here. We want to give you an opportunity to ask questions. So there's index cards. Brooke, Sergio, Jessica, would you grab those? If you didn't get one when you checked in, they'll be walking down the aisles and giving those to you. If you have yours and you have a question, just jot it down on your index card. We'll be walking the aisles, picking them up, and giving them to Christine as we round out the rest of the hour. Please join me in welcoming Christina Saro from SDG&E.
Good morning. Thank you all for welcoming me here. And thank you to SCEDC group for having SDG&E come out and moderate this. This is really important to us because we, of course, you know, have definitely looked into the UAS realm and definitely have been down this path, but also to hear that other communities and different leaders in San Diego are actually coming together and doing this together. I mean, that's the huge part of it. You all here, you know, without the network here, some of the UASs will not work. So this all is very exciting to me and very refreshing. So that being said, I have a first question here, and any of the panelists here can go ahead and answer this. So the first question is, how do you prevent commercially available drones from flying over airspaces, critical infrastructures, and sensitive areas? That's a good question.
Well, I guess we get this question a lot. How do we know that, how can we fly safely? And with the help of our federal government, you know, they've released the Part 107. And what it does, it kind of gives a basic understanding of exactly how to operate small UAS safely. And that's including not flying in the wrong airspace and things like that. Now, for the commercial industry, you know, a lot of our work right now is being done outside of the realm of communities. Most of the time we're in areas that are very hazardous and far away from communities. But in the near future, when we're doing a lot of work within the city, that's going to be something really difficult for us to figure out, because we have to make sure that we're not encroaching into airspace that we're not allowed to be able to do it. And the way we're doing it now is actually through training. Most of the time, we don't let, actually all the time, we don't let anybody operate on our system without the current training that we're providing. And with us, we're going to be able to actually monitor exactly what the activity that the drone is doing, just to make sure that they're not doing anything dangerous, inherently dangerous, that drones can do when they're flying in the wrong airspace. And so for us, it's all about training and connecting with a new technology that these big companies are working on, so that we can prevent any disasters from happening with small UAS.
So I echo that. On the consumer side, it's all education. San Diego is unique in that they've come out with some laws. I sympathize with our police department in terms of knowing what's legal, what's not. I mentioned earlier how San Diego is this unique environment. Balboa Park, beautiful place. A lot of visitors come, love to take selfies with their flying drones. They're in the flight path of Lindbergh. They're not allowed, but again, it's just really education. A lot of technology emerging in the consumer space to give them alerts. The FAA is moving to allow more airspace access, again, away from airports. And so it's not just about you can't fly here, it's you can't fly here, but go here, a mile east or some other directions. So that's what's going on the consumer side. The commercial side, of course, is where the FAA is really asking industry to weigh in. So they have an advisory committee, all the big technology players there, and representatives from technology as well as aviation, looking at these more complex environments and, again, using technologies for the drones to be able to sense and avoid other aircraft, for other aircraft to perhaps see them. A key component of that is the traffic management. So just like air traffic management is a big system, there's going to be a UAS traffic management system, and they will talk to each other. And so, the safest drone is the one that never gets off the ground, if you like. And so pre-flight authorization is an important aspect of that. Are you allowed to fly? Yes, then go. If not, then there's mechanisms that can disable that from even taking off. And then once it's in the different phases of flight, can it monitor the airspace, and can it be redirected, command and control? So these are the problems to be solved, as I keep saying. Today, you can't fly over people. You cannot fly inside airspace anywhere around airports. Basically, you can't fly in cities. And San Diego, as I mentioned, if you go look at the exclusion zones in San Diego, it's good luck finding a piece of space where you can legally fly. So flying over people, flying beyond visual line of sight. So again, putting 100 drones up and just walking away, knowing that they're autonomously scanning the wind turbines and coming back with a report. That is the most efficient thing to do, versus a pilot having to keep an eye on it. It also has the error aspect to it. You have to have that technology. So industry has the opportunity here to come in and start solving for what is a real risk, people flying in spaces they should not be.
And just to add on that, a lot of the commercial users out there, of course, take their job very seriously, so in the aspect of people knowing the right, the wrong, the right areas to fly in, all that is within the pilot to take on. Now, Daryl, I don't know, for your system there, yours is a little bit higher end. We're very, commercial oriented or whatnot. But for some of these UASs that are off the shelf, as we call them, what have you seen any parameters that maybe these off the shelf vendors have maybe taken to keep the hobbyists out of these, these areas that we're very fearful of them entering and not knowing what the damages that they could cause?
Yeah, so some of these big companies from China, they're actually been very good at preventing these drones from flying in airspace that they shouldn't be flying. And so that's actually one thing that I'm really thankful for, because if they didn't do that and they created a problem for us, it really looks bad, because they think whatever is consumer is also commercial. And so if they, let's say, destroyed an infrastructure because of careless flights of drones, that would really look bad in the media and forces the government to actually do something that would really prevent us from taking off as an industry. And so these devices, when they're turned on, they actually are very smart enough to actually know that they're in the realm of the airport area and they won't be able to take off.
Thank you. Thank you for emphasizing on that. Just from, a lot of different people I've talked to out there, just the understanding of the different kind of units out there and what hobbyists can potentially do versus, the commercial users and the people that are doing this, for their income is a little bit different. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to the next question here. So it says here, there's a discussion regarding the deconfliction of drones, UASs, RPAs with manned aircraft. What do you see as the next step to integrate synchronized drones with manned aircraft or other drones to maximize and complement the strengths of each other's platform?
Yeah, I'll take this. So before we started working on complying with both U.S. and international airworthiness standards, we'd always prided ourselves that we always had a fully rated pilot in the loop, and that remains so today. Regardless of the operation of the aircraft, we always have a rated pilot in the loop sitting in the ground control station. Now, where the next step in this goes is specifically integrating systems as a detect and avoid, sense and avoid type system that essentially will allow the unmanned or the UAV to operate like a manned aircraft, such that with the idea that this is integrated seamlessly. So the DAA technologies that are currently undergoing development in the medium altitude, long endurance category, which is where all of the GA aircraft reside, is going to change that industry. The other part of it is, and I think this is to some comments that Paul made earlier, it's with regards to the industry government partnerships, because I'll say 3 years ago, it was, FAA was definitely on a very vertical ramp as far as a learning curve with regards to how this was going to work. 3 years later, and we've been working very closely with the FAA as well, there's a more in-depth understanding of what needs to occur from an air management standpoint, from a technology development standpoint. So those are my comments on that.
That maybe you can comment, Rob, on some of the proposals out there for the military to have a fighter pilot and then have some drones next to him that are part of a mini squadron, so to speak.
Right. That's a pretty exciting technology, actually. The acronym is MUM-T, manned unmanned teaming. Essentially, where you've got a fighter aircraft, a Apache helicopter, something of that nature, that's actually using a remote video terminal to actually control a UAV in conjunction with an operation of a military aircraft. And from an aerospace standpoint, typically those are in, most of the concept evolves around combat zones. But I think in terms of the next generation of this, absolutely. You can probably see manned aircraft controlling unmanned aircraft.
Thank you, Robert and Jim. That's great additions there.
I'm going to help another Marine out. That was his question, by the way.
Well, thank you for that question.
And he's looking for a job, so somebody...
Well done, sir.
Thank you very much. All right, as many of you mentioned, the need for strategic partnerships with universities and the opportunities connecting to big data problems. Are any of you leveraging UCSD's supercomputer lab, and are there specific ideas you have to work with big data problems in your region? That's a great question. Solve that, that would be awesome for my end. But anybody?
Well, I didn't know they had a supercomputer, so now I do.
Uh-oh.
Then that's definitely...
That's right. We use it.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be, for us, it's mandatory that we actually work with supercomputers. Most of the time, we are responsible in collecting data, and these data need to be, serviced. And with us, using our own computers, a lot of it is burning up. They're just, they're tiny little dudes that can't handle what we're now collecting. And so we actually, we were actively looking for partners to actually help us on processing our data. And I didn't know that. Well, thank you so much for letting us know.
Yeah, so GA, well, I think Jim's got some perspective that he wants to add, but I'm familiar with the supercomputing lab, and it's a tremendous resource. And this boils down to the whole the data problem, because as the bandwidths get larger, the data flow becomes faster. The data is going to become a much larger challenge in terms of processing, exploitation, and dissemination. And so I see an aspect that where that would be a utilization. I think you've got something you...
Well, my comment was just a little historical note that Supercomputer Center was set up by GA, and GA ran it for about 7 years before the university took it over. But then going on to data analytics, our company does quite a bit of that and sees some tremendous potential. And I'm switching to the other industry in transport, because we collect mountains of data on people's travel in cities, and that has a lot of value, and it's a matter of trying to figure out how the transit agencies and city planners can use that as they go forward, and how they build out infrastructure and use what current buses and trains and ferries, et cetera, they have more effectively. So we see that as a really important area for us.
And I think it's important, just across the board as well, getting all this data that you're gathering, not isolating it in one area, actually sharing it and having, the company utilizing it and leveraging from that. It's very, very important. So I think there's an exciting, partnership there to kind of figure this stuff out. And I know that, SCG&E works very well with UCSD and has a piece of the supercomputer. So part of me is kind of smacking myself up the head for not thinking of that myself. So thank you for whoever prompted that question out there. It was awesome. A next question here, and this one kind of brings back to home, because like Mike had talked about, before they were UTC, they were, Goodrich, and then before that was Rohr, and Rohr Industries is somebody that my family grew up with. So this question kind of goes back to home here. Regional aero manufacturing, will it really return to California?
Will it? I'm sorry.
Yeah, will it
return?
Mm-hmm. Will it ever return?
I don't think to the same levels that we once experienced it. So I think it goes back to the comment that I made a little bit earlier. It was a little bit different angle, but very similar in terms of the answer. Our need in this region is to make sure our workforce is shifting to meet what we will be and can be and should be most competitive in here. So, you know, the likelihood of it being, so depending on the product, that might be a little bit different. For our product, you know, our product has challenges to be made in its entirety here that this region just won't be able to compete against. However, it can absolutely compete, and we are very competitive from a design and development standpoint, testing. In developing that new technology and having the expertise of getting it through all the phases of development to entry into service, into a new program, and then have it perform really, really well. So, you know, here in Chula Vista, as an example, that's what we are very good at. And that part, not only you know, are we good at it today, it needs to continue to grow because that's where the experience is. So, you know, whenever we work with, you know, whether it's universities, you know, we talked to others had talked about, you know, partnering with the universities, having access to capabilities, having access to talent. That talent for us needs to be aligned with what I just described. It isn't going to be as much on manufacturing talent. We still do have that here. But that isn't growing for us here. We are growing in manufacturing in total. Some of that is in California, but quite a bit more of it is elsewhere. But we have the talent here to make sure that that happens really well, and that's what we need to make sure that we're focused on growing, which is why we're working in, you know, the examples, some of which I gave and others have given, and working with our universities and having access to talent that occasionally, yes, we all poach from each other, but that's actually a good circumstance to have. Because if we can't do that, then, you know, it's very difficult to actually get people to be competitive. So I don't like when people are poached exactly, but it's a better circumstance than not having anybody. And it's really usually those two extremes. You either have them or you don't. And if you have them, then they move across. And you know, I think the more that we have that in this region, the more we continue to grow it, the more that we'll retain these high-tech jobs and have more of them.
And I'd like to comment on the manufacturing. We don't do, other than some prototyping, any manufacturing in San Diego. We have a plant in Tijuana, but that's part of the region, and we see that as a competitive advantage for us. So, and we've had one for 25, 30 years there. And then our other manufacturing facility of any size is in Tennessee. So, I mean, all you have to do is, you know, run the numbers, and it doesn't make any sense to try and have those kinds of jobs here.
And we just kind of as a note, we have probably right now over 200 recs open, and the number's a little bit down, but it's been pretty consistent in terms of open recs that we're having a challenge filling in the areas of engineering, program management, and manufacturing. So regionally, you know, the UAS is relatively small to the big aerospace, to the Boeings and such, but you know, we have a demand here regionally. That's the point.
And something that you had talked about, Mike, that was a little refreshing for myself is, you know, a lot of people go out there and they don't know, there's a lot of unknowns with the UASs and potentially what they could do if they encounter different atmospheres or environments, you know, power lines for one, or even engines, you know. So knowing that you guys are out there visually testing that, you know, looking at that and really wrapping, you know, your facility around, putting the money into doing that is great. I haven't heard, I mean, we've been in this industry, you know, 3 or 4 years, and I have yet to hear anybody actually doing it, you know. So just hearing that is very, very refreshing. You know, I think the biggest part of it is having those test facilities, you know, having a very safe, closed-in area in which you can test and actually train your pilots to the utility or whatever sector you're trying to train on.
And just a quick comment on that one. You know, it's a very good example of where we can do more partnership, because it can be a competitive advantage for both the UAV supplier and us to make sure we solve that problem, because it's a real problem that provides us with a competitive advantage that's a mutual benefit if we work together to solve it.
Absolutely.
And if others don't have that, then we're both in a much better place in the marketplace, to be competitive globally.
Thank you. Thank you for adding that in there, Mike. All right.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you all.
I appreciate that. Our thanks to SDG&E. I'm going to ask Vanessa to come up from SDG&E in just a second. Just a couple things. I don't know if Eric Crockett's still in the room, but the city of Chula Vista is in the process of creating an outside drone testing facility that will be several hundred acres. So you'll hear more about that as we get into the summer. Also, our friends from East County EDC, Joe Marie, if you're looking for any kind of manufacturing, we want to make sure you're looking at Connectory.com, where you can link with all sorts of manufacturers here in San Diego as well as nationwide. Separate from that, Jesse, San Diego Regional EDC, is taking a survey for anyone who touches any kind of military defense-related business. If you are, you can reach that website at our website, southcountyedc.com, right on our homepage. Click it. We're going to close out the survey here pretty quick, so if you can do that today or tomorrow, we'd appreciate it. Your panelist presentations, including the video, will be on our website, southcountyedc.com. Their presentations will appear, give us till the end of tomorrow. And the video, Vic, we're talking about a week and a half to 2 weeks, right? Yes, about 2 weeks, and we'll have that posted on our video also. To close us out, and with our deep gratitude for being one of our sponsors today, here is Vanessa Mapula Garcia with the San Diego Gas and Electric.
Thank you, Cindy. First of all, how about a big round of applause for our panelists and our moderators today? For our panelists, you are by far distinguished leaders in advanced technology and innovation, and we are so excited that you have come and spent some time with us here in South County today to share all of your expertise and your company's innovation. Thank you so much. For everyone, the next steps as far as South County EDC's task force is basically going to be to compile all of this information into an action plan. South County EDC and our partners will be developing this action plan, and it will basically entail all of your questions and all of our panelists' input and feedback. So look forward to that, and thank you for staying tuned for more aerospace and innovation in South County. With that, have a great day. Oh, and I'm sorry, I want to also acknowledge our mayor who came. Thank you so much, Mayor of National City, Ron Morrison. Thank you for being here today. Have a great day.